well. I think that for the next 20 minutes or so, we'll be discussing the real-world tokenization. Anndy Lian is intergovernmental blockchain expert and book author, so there will be a nice discussion around tokenization in general, and happy to have you all for this fireside chat. My name is Faraj. I'm a Chief Commercial Officer of Venom Foundation. This is a layer 1 chain out of Abu Dhabi, licensed, regulated, and we focus on stablecoins, on real-world assets, tokenization globally. We have partnership with UAE government. I'm also a founder of large community of crypto executives, which is the largest in the crypto space, around 2,000 members. Yeah, let's start with Andy. So if you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background history, how you ended up being in crypto, what's your connection to tokenization in general, what's your view?
Sure, thanks. I didn't expect that we have this conversation that late, But I'm Andy, I'm based in Singapore, but most of the time I travel around. So I started my journey in 2013 when I bought my first Bitcoin. And then in 2017, I go all the way into the blockchain space. I've never left the industry. Ever since, I give advice to different government. If you Google my name online, I'm involved with South Korean, Mongolia, and at one point I was the blockchain advisor to a UN-like productivity intergovernmental group. So I've always been in the space. I'm an investor. I run a fund. I hold a CMS license in Singapore. And, on a personal basis, I'm a very fun guy. I'm always online, chatting with retail investors, small follower base on Twitter, on Instagram. So I kept doing that. But of course, today when we talk about this RWA, I had a couple of investments, from Liechtenstein all the way to Singapore, RMO license, and then to Kazakhstan, to look at commodity regulated exchanges, using crypto. There's a lot of things to share today. Happy to continue this conversation, man, bro.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I think you have quite a good experience all around. And actually consulted governments, United Nations, and various other entities. And coming back to our discussion around tokenization, what's your view on the tokenization in general? Like, what's the status at the moment? How various governments, how various companies are approaching it? Do you think it started to get some traction now?
I think the traction is very obvious, So in the past, when we talk about 2017, 18, when I first started to talk to government, they are all very skeptical. Right now, because when we talk about RWA, it is very straightforward. Like the fine gentleman from Tokeny has mentioned, you just need to follow the traditional asset classification, and a lot of things will just fall in place. But again, this is coming from a more technology, or maybe more from a more financial standpoint. I think it makes sense. From a technology standpoint, I think as of now, there are a lot of different companies. Today, I spoke to Lisa, Twin, and so forth. There are a lot of companies that are trying to tokenize asset. And I think the technology is 100% ready. At this point of time, 100% ready. You can see big banks coming in. You can see, larger government pushing this whole RWA wave. Whether it's in Singapore or whether it's going to be in maybe Mongolia and so forth. People are pushing it. But in my very humble opinion, there's one thing that is really missing. Is not just adoption. I think the thing that is missing is how can companies make money? What is the real revenue model behind some of these RWA projects? I think that is fundamentally the issue. So I invested in a RMO, registered market operator, something like Singapore Exchange, stock exchange. They can do all those securitized crypto products, stock, and so forth. The reason why I withdraw my investment is not because the license is not good. The license is valuable, but my point of view is it's hard to make money, because if you are going to tokenize properties, for example, how is the exchange going to earn money? The exchange can only earn money through different products, for example, or through the number of transactions. But if you are doing things like a securitized token or property, you will not get that much trade or that many trades on a day-to-day basis. So the way to earn that money is very tough. Plus, there's also a huge liquidity problem. If your asset class is good, right, you get a AAA building, you can sell it off easily. There's no need to even tokenize it. The biggest problem is for those mid-level property. For example, let's say you go to Cambodia, and then even the local Cambodians are not going to buy the property. What makes us so sure that if we tokenize that property, someone from the crypto space is willing to pay for that token, right? So I still think that the small issue here right now is about liquidity and about how the revenue model can help to sustain all this company. We gone are the days where we need to talk about MVPs, talk about the technology, because it is proven, by the bigger banks, by the different asset manager that this is going to work. How are the smaller or medium player going to earn their money? That is actually one thing that constantly I had in my mind. I had a chat as well, and also constantly in the minds of governmental bodies. They kept asking. There was one session where I was in a closed door chat with a minister of technology. He kept asking me the same question. How are this company going to sustain? How are they going to make the right money? It's a very difficult question to ask and answer.
I also believe that tokenization, it's a hype word at the moment. A lot of people are talking about it. Like a few years ago, everyone was talking about DeFi in the same way. Maybe a year and a half ago, it was GameFi, that revolution will happen and like billions of gamers will come into the Web3 space. And it didn't happen, right? So like this is a human psychology. We always try to find the next big thing and try to jump on the board and be early. But you're absolutely right. So how these companies, how those people and those founders that create those companies are actually looking into monetization aspect. I mean, why exactly their company would be big and successful. So if you can talk about the current monetization models, right, and how those companies that actually are the largest in the space, like Centrifuge, like Goldfinch, what do you think about them and about their models and about the startups that are coming up?
I think the bigger companies do not have a big issue in terms of getting revenue, because this so-called tokenization model is just one of their many streams of income. So I think that we put them aside. They are totally in very good position. But the startups are the one, that comes up with huge valuation. So as an investor, 3 weeks ago, someone came to me from US. It's a very big RWA project. Valuation right now is about 600 M. But the thing is, it's really tough for VC like myself to put in the money, because we will not know when they can make the money back, or will there be maybe another SoftBank, coming in to foot the bill, So I still felt that the big boys are okay. The smaller startups are the problematic ones. But one good thing about the startup is that they are constantly innovative, right? They want to try something new, So whether it's going to be a new ERC standard or whether it's going to be a new way to wrap your token around assets, and still being legal, I think that is the way to move in this current market, And again, we are talking about big ticket item. But right now, I don't think that property is the best way to do it. I would think that maybe commodities are good. The second thing that I really think that is really successful is art. So give you an example. So I wear many different hats. So if you Google me online, I'm also the advisor to Bybit Exchange. We are the world's second largest exchange. And I lead the partnerships within Bybit. So if you look at a lot of different sponsorships with Oracle Red Bull Racing, it's done by my team, right? So Oracle Red Bull Racing and Bybit, we launched a series of NFTs with really famous digital artists. We have Jack Butcher, we have Eric, we have Pearl Christian. If you Google them online, they are all very famous artists. They produce artwork in a digital format. Sold very well, some of which we got a few hundred ETH in the total collection. And why I'm saying this is because once they made it in the NFT space, they get enough followings, they get enough people to buy the collection. The next thing they change is that they come out with the one-of-one print with their signature on it. That is also another form of physical art that is tagged to the NFT, And that reverse cycle would actually bring more value to the artwork because it originated as an NFT, then become a physical piece of artwork. Some of this artwork were actually being auctioned off at famous auction houses and displayed at leading museums and so forth. So I think that kind of RWA suits very well in this current context, especially from a more crypto-native context.
I completely agree. I think on the case of real estate, like as you mentioned, if this is something hot and you always can find a buyer, right? And real estate is very, very localized thing. Like if you're gonna go and have a hotel in Business Bay, for example, and everyone in Dubai will know that. In Abu Dhabi, maybe. But once you go outside, even in Saudi, they will say, what is Business Bay? And why I should have there and not in Silicon Oasis, which is like way fancier name. Perhaps they will connect it to Silicon Valley, but in terms of the location and prestige, it's two different things, right? And one could say Palm Jumeirah, second say Palm Deira, or Palm Jebel Ali, which is not existent. So there is a lot of, in my opinion, localization of real estate that prevents it from being tokenized successfully. Obviously, few bigger players will emerge and they will have perhaps the contracts with MR, with Aldar locally, but with large developers globally, they will kind of consolidate, they will work with institutions to become alternative to the rates. And there are already rates in place, right? So why people think that, investing in rate is anywhere different from tokenization in real estate, right? So I would like to ask you about this particular question, difference between rate and tokenized real estate. What is there for the ordinary person, for example?
As much as I want to explain this, I just hope that any ordinary person who is going to buy that asset, there's no need to really know whether it's tokenized or not tokenized, right? I think the key thing is, why is there a need to put the word, for example, blockchain, in the prospectus? There's no need to do that, because if you are there to buy a property, for example, that would just be a property. Whether it's going to be on-chain or not on-chain, whether the value is going to be, sustained or is going to pump up, it all depends on how the local government or your government is going to, look at the property prices and so forth. So to me, as a layman right now, I don't really care whether it's going to be tokenized or not tokenized, But if today, some other projects will say that, oh, because I want to buy a fraction of the property, okay, But if you think deeper, it doesn't really mean anything as well, So I rather really use the technology in a slightly different manner. For example, we did a project in Thailand with one of the governmental body to tokenize the deeds, the land title deeds. I think that would make a difference, right? Instead of just tokenizing the asset,
Yeah, I think like even in Dubai, whenever you have a title deed, there is a code downstairs on the bottom of the page, which is basically like you can see it from the blockchain, right? So this particular deed is on the blockchain. You can always go cross-check the code, and on the system you'll find out that it's actually like bought at this price, sold at this price to that particular person. It's actually a valid title deed, so it's a counterfeit protection. And I was surprised that actually Dubai brought it like before the craziness around tokenization, craziness even about the blockchain in here, right? So one of the partners in MasterCard, she was like advisor to the government of UAE before like even 2021, which was like a birth of like crypto like resurgence in the region. Like another one is like, what in your opinion is a driver of an interest towards tokenization? Why exactly now, and what actually created this kind of hype around tokenization now?
That's a very tough question, So when I speak to the governmental body or even the different ministry, they think that by adding on blockchain, it keeps them at a certain level, They keep them at the right pace, with what the industry wants, to be very honest, And then the scholar, which is part of the certain ministry, will start to write a lot of different paper, take part in different public consultancy and so forth. That I think drives some interest, But also at the same time, many startups, to be very honest, many startups see that this is a good chance to raise some good money. And when many of them see this opportunity, they create their content as well. Then they create their narrative. For example, just now we see one project that was talking about land, about how they can tokenize the crop and so forth. I used to own coffee plantation, To be very honest, the idea is fantastic, But how is the project going to earn sufficient money to keep themselves afloat? That is another issue, right? So I still think that the whole tokenization hype is 100% driven by hype, But of course, a smaller percentage is to look at the technology deeper, to look at how we can reduce fraud, from a broader perspective, and how to increase the traceability element that the blockchain can offer. That I think should be the few things that is driving, what all people are trying to do right now,
Like, I believe also, in my opinion, let's talk about challenges of tokenization, right? Why it hasn't like already happened in a large scale, so we can all talk about successful implementation of this tokenization. So, in my opinion, one of them is regulatory challenges. Every single jurisdiction is having their own regulation, so you cannot really take like even the group of assets on a global scale. but maybe you have some more.
I still think that I think it's a standardization of all these asset classes, you know, and also regulation. Because if you look at different asset classes in a different manner from country to country, you know, whether it's going to be a cryptocurrency or whether it's going to be tokenizing horses and things like that, I think the regulatory is one big hurdle. But I think the reason why it also didn't accelerate as fast as what we want is still reality, you know, because there are still a big percentage of people, huge percentage of people that do not think that tokenizing is going to be that useful, you know, because if it's just to tokenize a product, they will think that, okay, example, if the property is able to sell well, whether it's tokenized or don't tokenize, it's still the same thing, right? So many of them are still having that thought of whether is this necessary or not. And only time will prove them. You know, only time will prove whether this technology is needed or not. But to me, I always go back to the basic. Because when we look at blockchain products, for example, it's all about traceability, it's all about reducing fraud. If you could use that as the use case, like what we did for the property deeds and so forth, it's actually an easy way to utilize or get more adoption. You know, so I still think that is the reality that stop us from going too big, too far. And there's also no need to tell people that, oh, you know, my network is run behind of so and so blockchain or so forth. There's no need to do that, you know.
Like, what do you think about tokenization of carbon credits? And in some way, some people are saying stable coins as well, right? So it's like stable coins, fiat-based stable coins, and CBDCs are also a form of tokenized debt, right? So of government debt, for example. So do you believe that there is a future in carbon credits tokenization? And second question, do you believe there is a future in stable coins in the international trade or within the government?
I think that stablecoin is, again, if you read all the scholarly literature, I think most of the government bodies that I interact with, they already recognize that, you know, stablecoin is here, you know, and they would love to embrace it within a certain framework, you know, and that is that also add back to why some of these countries, they want to accelerate CBDC. Because if you can tokenize the money, you know, you can trace and track where the money is going. You know, literally you can trace everything. So CBDC, if the CBDC is done properly, you could actually trace every single money transaction that's going through. You know, so to the government, I think this is kind of what they want. You know, they can kind of see, you know, kind of know what's happening. You know, with that, it also equates to things like, oh, if today we want to empower more DeFi projects, again, you know, if you need to cash out, you know, and that country has a CBDC, that would, again, know who is the one that is transacting and exiting with all the money. And they could actually put in some tax. And it's win-win, at least from a government standpoint. And then from a carbon credit standpoint, I think that is one of the very valid use case that I see. You know, I used to interact with a few carbon credit exchanges, one of which is from Singapore. Some others are in Southeast Asia. You know, I still think that that kind of traceability on the credit itself would be very interesting. You know, I love to see more, you know, regulated carbon exchange in the space, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And in general, I mean, tokenization, if it being applied properly, can have a long-lasting impact on the financial industry. So, what would be they? You know, what would be those impacts? How the financial industry would transform in 5 to 10 years from now. If tokenization is taken seriously, and it's not only crypto people talking about it, which in my opinion is happening right now. Yeah, you don't really hear like institutional bankers or big governments when they talk about any financial innovation say, oh, what about tokenization? But if it leaves crypto world and goes towards the main financial world, what would be the impact in your opinion?
Let's say we talk about really huge adoption. You know, all the big banks are talking about it and so forth, and they adopt it. I think the more straightforward outcome is that you will see things more effective. You know, you will see money transact from A to B in a much faster, cheaper manner. You know, that would be the big impact that I see from my point of view. You know, and again, you know, it's not so much about just promoting the technology. It's putting the technology in use. You know, for example, you can do clearance 24/7. You can do money transfer 24/7. Of course, you can say that we can do it now as well, but in a much more effective manner is something that I hope to see in years to come. You know, whether it's going to be cross-border, whether it's going to be somewhat similar to what XRP is trying to do. You know, I really hope to see that. You know, a more effective financial system, maybe even more transparent, but to me, more effective is the key.
Yeah, I always say that mass adoption of blockchain can come from two ways: bottoms up, and next step for Solana moment, or you know, ChainGPT for AI. It can also come from top down, from the governments, big institutions kind of adopting it, making their citizens to utilize blockchain, getting it adopted quicker. So in your opinion, what would be the next driver of mass adoption, and what would of the cryptocurrencies, or the next ChainGPT moment for crypto?
Wow, I still felt that the next wow moment. Let me put it this way. I think that right now, the people who are using crypto or no crypto is still a very small community. I think the wow moment would be if I can walk out and I manage to see a lot of people talking about how they can spend their crypto. I think that would be the next wow moment, because if you can see many leading exchanges, you know, whether it's Bybit or whether it's Binance, they are trying to make more people use, you know, their card, you know, and it's backed by crypto. I hope to see more of such adoption, and if the community can grow to a big size, I think that would be a wow moment for all of us. Because right now, if you can see, the current pump in price is very much driven by institution. You know, all the orders are huge orders. The next wow moment is I really hope to see more of the retail investor understanding crypto and driving crypto to the next level. You know, that's the wow moment, at least on my end.
Yeah, I also remember the same. When I traveled to China, and it was a very big like shock for me that every single seller on the street would have a mobile phone and would accept the WeChat Pay, right? Everyone would use it. Like literally, you would see people selling like you know, apples. He doesn't have shoes. He doesn't have. You know, he just came from like a village, but still he would have a smartphone and transact with WeChat Pay. And I mean, I also believe that this might be the future of crypto in some way.
I hope so, because in China you can really see the mass adoption for digital money, you know, and their CBDC is already in place. And again, you know, more developed countries, maybe like Singapore, there's a lot of legacy problems. You know, you go and pay your food using an Amex card. They'll say that, hey, man, dude, you know, I don't have that machine, right? But if you go to places like China, for example, or South Korea, you know, in South Korea, there are some like aunties, you know, selling some yogurt drink and so forth. They accept your card, you know. Why can't, you know, some other countries do the same, you know? And if you go to places like Bangkok, for example, you could even use your Bitcoin Cash, you know, to pay for your food and so forth. That's a very different experience, you know.
Yeah, I think you like as a last question is just you wrote a book, right, from NFTs from back to zero, basically. Just you can share a few words about this book and like key insights that actually you want to deliver, and maybe you want to have some correlation between NFTs and tokenization if there are any.
Sure. So my book itself is called NFT from Zero to Hero. Sold about 10,000 plus books so far. The book itself was launched last year, and the reason why I launched it is not because I want to sell a lot of books, you know. And in fact, that was the really downtime for NFT. The reason why I wrote the book is because many of my friends who are in the listed companies or bigger companies, they kind of got scammed by kick-ass consultants. You know, oh, I do an NFT for you, 500,000. I was like, oh, that's really good money, you know. So I wrote the book to give to a lot of my friends and tell them that, hey, you know, read my book. You can buy it too, you know, but read my book and you can get some really good tips on how you could tokenize your company loyalty program in the simplest manner. And in fact, my book was the first NFT book that was launched on Bybit NFT Marketplace as a digital format, you know. And people just download, you know, they get some perks, you know, as by holding on to the NFT, have some fun, you know. To me, I just want to spread the love and try to tell people that NFT is not dead, you know. And in fact, like I've mentioned about the Oracle Red Bull NFTs that we have launched so far, it proves that it's not dead at all, because we found the right partner, which is Oracle Red Bull Racing, and we found the right kind of artist that is able to drive that kind of a demand on specific artwork that is linked to what we are trying to do. You know, so again, I'm trying to say this again, NFT is not dead. Many big companies, including Nike, including Amazon and so forth, they are all pushing this agenda in their own manner. And please, don't need to read my book, you know, just, you know, sometimes look at what I've written online. You know, a lot of things reflect back to the same kind of philosophy, you know. Read and learn and explore yourself, you know. All those influencers that you see, you know, maybe in Dubai or in Singapore, all those guys are useless. You know, you have to do your own research and make the value out of it, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You know, sometimes even the information is there, right? You don't need to rely on influencers telling you that, oh, I know something that you don't know. Not necessarily. There is always a lot of conflicts of interest of those people. You know, you never know if he was paid to do something. Where is his monetization? So ultimately, if you want to make any decision, it's best to go in, make your research, and there is always nice resources out there that were proven by time, right? So definitely, you know, books is one of them. Good level YouTube channels that never advertise for money is another one. But most importantly, it's like people that you really can trust and can go and meet and communicate.
I agree with you. Totally agree. And a book is also a real world asset. I have one question for you. Do you want to tell us a bit more about what Venom is trying to do? Because I have a lot of friends who are good supporters of your foundation, you know, and trying to see if they could get some form of help and assistance, you know, from Venom.
Yeah, our chairman is Peter Kness, who is ex-CIO of BlackRock. So I personally spend a lot of time with him, and we talk about his past experience with BlackRock. Like he was discussing a lot with Larry Flink. He actually talks about how he changed his opinion about this. And we look in the mass adoption from the second point of view, where it can come from top down. It can come from us working with governments on the stablecoin initiatives, us working with UE government or carbon credit tokenization and other governments on carbon credits, and then basically slowly getting people into Web3. For that, of course, you have to have foundation, which is high-speed, scalable internet, and this is what we're trying to do. So yeah, again, thanks a lot, Andy, for a really great discussion.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much.